that he is not available any longer to attend the meeting. And Chair Baber, you do not have audio. It may be, if you can log out and log back in again, that should fix it, or your phone.
Yes, this is James. Chair Baber's in the boardroom. He'll be using the boardroom audio.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize. I should have realized that.
No worries.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so. Okay. I don't see, and did we get Hassan? Because I don't see him on. Oh, okay. Oh. Okay, is he, yes, sir. Test if we have a quorum.
Not yet.
Not at this time. We don't have a quorum.
Oh, who do we have besides me?
Stuart.
Hey, Stuart. Stuart, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Bill. How are you?
Okay, so it's just me and you, buddy. You cannot start your video because the host has stopped it, it says. Where are you, Stuart?
I'm sheltering in place in lovely San Diego, California.
I forget which neighborhood you live in.
I'm on Mount Soledad on the PB side.
Oh. That's a beautiful neighborhood. Do you have a nice view? Can you see the water?
I can see water. I see a bunch of the bay and a little bit of the ocean. It's really nice.
All right, now what do we do?
Hello, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
Okay.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay, I see Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Hi, everybody.
Stuart's on. I see Jim is on. And I see Sandag Production. I'm not sure what that is.
This is this room, the boardroom.
Okay.
Just so you know, Mary is not wearing mask because she's complying still with the Sandak policies because she's in her office. So she
I am. I'm in my office alone with my door shut.
And Mary, they delivered the whole package, so tell them thanks.
Okay, great.
So, Mr. Kirk, can we start the meeting without a quorum, or we just have to hold?
Cannot.
Chair Baber.
What's your normal?
And legal counsel.
If you want that you're waiting for a quorum to start the meeting, just so members of the public know.
Okay, for anyone who's listening, we're waiting to get a third member so we can have a quorum so we can start the meeting, so we're just killing time. Hopefully this witty banter will amuse you while we're waiting for someone. Mary, did you talk to Bob or...
Hello?
We got Bob. I hear Bob.
Bob, are you on, Bob?
Sorry, guys. I'm having my
Okay.
beautiful.
What about Paul?
I see no Paul yet. I hear Bob though.
And Wells said he's not coming, so we definitely need, but if we have Stuart and Bob, we can start, we can go. All right, if Paul joins us, he joins us.
Chair.
Yes,
Chair
ma'am.
Baber. I just
Yes.
want to make sure, Bob, you're on your phone? Last digit.
No, I'm at the Sandag boardroom looking at Hassan and Mr. Kirk.
I
Okay.
am on my phone right now.
Bob,
Unfortunately.
yes, Monson. You're on
Yeah.
your phone? And are
Yeah.
your last three digits 98?
098.
John, does this, if I talk, does this like feedback into your mic? No. All right, but it doesn't pick up across.
You sound
Okay.
fine.
That does confirm a quorum.
Okay, so you ready, Mr. Kirk, can we start? All right, thank you for attending the Friday, July 24th Sandag Audit Committee. And our first, we don't necessarily have to do the Pledge of Allegiance, but do you want to do it anyway? You got a flag?
We do.
All right, let's go. Stand up. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. First item is the approval of the meeting minutes of the May 22nd meeting.
I'd move to approve.
Okay, was that a motion by Stewart?
Yes, Halpern motion to approve.
Okay, and
Monson seconds.
all right, and a second by Bob. Do you need to call roll, Mr. Kirk? You want me to call the roll? Tessa, where is Tessa?
We have it.
Okay, go ahead, Tessa.
And Linda's going to do the roll call vote. I just want to state on the record that we do have a quorum.
Okay.
City of La Mesa, Councilmember Bill Baber, Chair.
Aye.
Paul
Yes.
Olsart,
Aye.
Stuart Halpern,
Aye.
Robert Monson,
Aye.
There we go.
Okay. Oh, Paul, there you are. We didn't see you before. Welcome.
Well, I was in the wrong Zoom room waiting for everybody else, so I,
All right. Well, we're glad you're here.
I wondered where you were. I decided it couldn't be that I was the only one right, so I hunted around and got a different one.
Okay. Do we have, Tessa, do we have any public comments?
For the record, we want to state that Mayor Wells, the vice chair, is absent, and that motion passes with those members present. And I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, so no public comments?
No public comments at this time.
Do we have any public communications? Or do we have any
No, sir.
member comments, just for general member comments? Okay, having heard none, we'll move on. Item 3 is the Executive Director's Report. Hassan, take it away.
Thank you, Chairman, committee members. Good to see you. Mr. Halpern, I like your beard. Got a little bit longer there.
It's the pandemic beard.
Thank you very much. I hope and I wish you're safe and healthy with your loved ones. This obviously hasn't been easy, and we went a little bit backwards, but we're still hoping for the best for all of us. A couple of items. One is organizational items I need to inform you about. Our Chief Operating Officer, Laura Cote, have resigned after 14 years at Sandag. I want to thank Laura for her over a decade work at Sandag. Laura was the COO and had under her business operation, IT, and communication. I made the following decisions effective last Monday. IT and communication will move to Ray Traynor, the Chief Deputy for Plans and Program. Data and modeling will move to Ray Major, our Chief Economist and Chief Analytic Officers, and business operation will report directly to me. I don't have any plans in the immediate future to replace the position given the freeze we have agency-wise, but eventually the agency would need a chief operating officer, and when we know where we land on the other side of COVID-19, we'll find out when that is. I want to thank the senior team who's taking on some of the responsibilities. We'll get through this and we'll get through it together. Second change is my assistant, Kathy Jin, has left her jobs to the old job, and I couldn't keep her because when somebody offers you 30% more than what you're making, you really can't say no to that. So as a result, your amazing clerk of the board, Tessa, who is on this meeting too, is going to be a clerk of the board for a couple more weeks because she was officially, as of last Monday, my office manager. She's back helping me through maneuvering this. And we'll be recruiting internally for the clerk of the board position. I believe the recruitment started, and hopefully 4 to 6 weeks we should finalize this. But in the meanwhile, Tessa agreed, and I'm grateful to her to keep helping us with the board meeting until further notice. That's on the staffing. On the program side, I had several meetings with the governor's office staff, with the housing department. The housing department accepted our regional housing need assessment. We submitted a request together with the other large MPOs to extend the deadline for housing elements. And after negotiating with the housing department and the governor's office, we settled on maybe extending the grace period, that we're going to put legislative language, attach it to a trailer bill, and hopefully get it through. August 3rd is the deadline for us to submit what we call Tsip Applications, which is the Trade Corridor Enhancement Programs. This time around, we divided the Tsip application into two areas of interest. One is Del Mar Bluff stabilization, and two is the Otay Mesa 2. We have been communicating with the Secretary of Transportation, the head of Caltrans, communicating with the California Transportation Commission. The application deadline is August 3rd. We will know about funding by December. My goal that I stated to you earlier is to fully fund the stabilization for Del Mar once and for all this year, and I'm hopeful that this money will come through. You've been hearing about Del Mar for the last 2 decades. I'm hoping to be able to tell you sometimes in December that it's stable for the next 30 years, and we move forward and look at the long-term solutions. The RTP schedule, next week, August 7th, or the week after, the Transportation Committee, Regional Planning, and Border Committee will hear the next phase of the 5 big moves. On August 14th, the Board of Directors will have, and the only thing on the meeting is the unveil of the 5 big moves. You are obviously welcome, and I hope you'll tune in to listen to both the Policy Committee discussion and the board meeting on the 14th. We usually dark in August, but this time we scheduled the meeting on 14th, and I want to thank Mary and the chairman of your committee for accommodating moving the audit committee meeting to the 21st of August as opposed to the 14th because of that. I can tell you just simply that as I am, you will be impressed with what your staff are putting forth. Obviously, a lot of questions are coming. Is the system you're presenting going to be impacted by COVID-19? And the answer is we still don't know. No question that COVID-19 is going to have a huge impact in many areas. How would it impact 5 decades of transportation planning? That's not clear. Earlier today, was presented to the board some preliminary data we have in telecommuting. Obviously, there is more people telecommuting now. But unfortunately, the same data also said that people who telecommute seem to travel more. So they increase vehicle travel because they didn't do that commute trip, and they help congestion in the peak, but they run around everywhere because they didn't go to work. So we still have the pressure of meeting the requirement, putting a transformational system, giving choices to San Diegan. Our staff will present that, and the thinking is pre-COVID-19, and we'll be adjusting according to what we learn from COVID-19. But I hope you will not be disappointed with that. Finally, as you recall, last September, I asked the board to appropriate $60 million to convert the 5 HOV lanes, which are under construction right now, to hot lanes, high occupancy toll facilities like on the I-15. The board did not go with that, and I respect that decision. I still think doing it while it's under construction is going to save a lot of money, so I approached with my team California Transportation Commission to see if they could advance future funding to this. We've been told yes. Then COVID-19 hit. We've still been told yes, but we will see whether the money is still there. But I'm hopeful that we're going to hear good news soon. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Bob or Stuart or Paul, do you have any questions for Hassan?
Bob or Stuart or Paul, do you have any questions for Hassan?
One question not touched on by our CEO, Hassan. What's happened on the subvention payments? I forgot. This was from Mary Ann. Maybe it's covered by Mary Kay, rather. But the state mandate payments, has that moved along at all?
I'll actually be going over with you that, Paul.
Okay, then thank you, Hassan. I won't need it.
Okay. Anybody else for Hassan?
Oh, I had one other question. I saw in the paper that the coasters ordered a bunch of new rolling stock, which I thought was fine. But it didn't appear that we had any role in that. Is that correct? The Sandag was not involved in financing any of that fairly sizable purchase.
We did finance last September. The board allocated $58.9 million given to NCTD to purchase 2 sets of locomotives.
Okay, it didn't say that in the paper, and that's why I was surprised that it said they financed it all on their own, and I thought, well, that's interesting.
No, actually, once people get the money, they forget where they come from, you know.
Well, I'm a parent. I understand how that works.
Okay. If there's no more questions for Hassan, let's turn to Mary's report. This is the update on the office of... Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Is there another question I can't see? Is that from Stuart?
Yes, just one quick question. Hassan, I listened to the presentation, the excellent presentation this morning. The one thing I would just suggest is, as everyone at Sandag is going through the assessment of what the post-pandemic world might be, is to just be very wary of confirmation bias, particularly in survey, looking at survey results at this point, and just try to do whatever you can to, be doing sort of red team analysis and questioning things to make sure that there isn't any kind of subtle confirmation bias in terms of the view of the world post-pandemic.
Yeah, and Mr. Hallman, this is an excellent question. And 2 things. One is some of the data you saw today is statistically not significant, actually, to start with. This is just giving us ideas. Our data group under Cindy Burke and Ray Major are doing statistically significant. They're going to look at that exact point, because Look, there's going to be a lot of guessing between now and next year what this pandemic means. And frankly, we don't live in a world where we could plan based on guessing. So what you saw today is not scientific data that give us a clue into the subject matter, but definitely not definitive. So you will stay tuned for a more elaborate, and you're absolutely right, it's going to test for the risk and biases all over. But one thing I just want the committee member to keep in mind, and you always deal with numbers and finances, and you're smart people here. I learned that from Paul, that he's very smart. I happened to have with him outside the meeting, so he could relate to what I'm about to say. I believe, you know, like when COVID-19 hit the first time, we thought it's going to be, our economists went ahead and did the analysis and was based on a V-shaped recovery. And now we're learning that at best it's a U-shaped recovery, at worst it's a W, where we opened up and we closed back down, etc. So from an economic standpoint, we're really still don't know the impact. But when it comes to transportation, I just want to remind you that traffic is almost at 90% of what it was pre-COVID-19, even though nobody is working really. And makes you think that the behavioral aspects of this is much more than we ever understood about people. We always thought that many trips are around the work trips, but we're finding out that people are traveling at least 90% of the way there like pre. So we're going to have to really glean through this data and understand how it's going to impact the next 5 decades of our transportation planning.
And we're also finding out that not everybody who's supposed to be working is working.
By the way, not only that, and even the technology companies like Microsoft and others, they're saying the working from home after all is not what it felt to be, and they're requiring their employees at least to get together once in a while. So we're learning a lot, and we're going to continue to learn a lot. We're not going to learn it enough to change our direction on the 5 big moves, but we're going to inform it as we move forward.
Are there any more questions for Hassan, or can we move to item 4, update on the Office of the Independent Performance Auditor activities?
Chair Baber, just to state for the record, there is no public comments for item number 3.
Are there any public comments for item number 4?
That's me next, Bill.
Well, I want to see if there's any public comments before we start. I'm assuming no, because I didn't hear any answers. Okay, so go ahead, Mary, with item 4.
Okay, just a quick update here. We are still wrapping up the salaries and benefits and other compensation audit. That is going well. Staff is completely committed to getting this done, and I want to kind of give a shout out to my staff. We're a very small staff. We've been working 14 and 15-hour days to get this audit done timely. That's not just my 2 auditors and myself, but also my interns. I'm really impressed with them and what they've learned about auditing in a very short period of time, and that they still want to audit, which is really good. So I just want to give a shout out to my team, because they have just been kicking butt, and I appreciate them. The next step after we wrap up this audit, which is I'm going to do a final review early next week, and then we'll hand it over to Hassan and his team, and we will give them 10 days to respond to the audit. And then it will be coming to the audit committee. And from there, it will go to the board of directors, and of course be public and posted on the website. So just to let you know, we'll talk about an August meeting as a result of needing this report to get issued and move forward to the board by September. And I'll go into that a little later in the items. The state mandate. So the state mandate, we did get a late response from the Department of Finance that basically was opposing the mandate. That's not a shocker. They usually oppose every mandate. They like to mandate, but they want local to pay for it. So they opposed this mandate. And luckily, John identified that and we responded quickly. Not only did they oppose the mandate, and we believe for the misinformed reasons, which John was able to do an awesome job responding back to them in a rebuttal, but they also submitted an early draft proposal rejecting the mandate as well. So they sent in a late proposal that basically a late opposing the mandate. That came in late. So John sent a rebuttal on that. And then we included in that same rebuttal the opposing the draft proposal of denying the mandate early. And then also I included in that response in the rebuttal about increased costs that they were saying were not increased costs. So where it lies now, if you want to review that, if you go to the Commission on State Mandates website under comments and then SANDAG and you look at the history, you'll see kind of Department of Finance late response, basically opposing our mandate. You'll see their early draft of the mandate decision, and you'll also see John's really great response rebuttal back to them, which I believe was just awesome and really knocks it down, because they were basically stating that we were a JPA and we didn't have taxing authority, and also they weren't increased costs, but we do have taxing authority. So John managed that really well. So we'll see.
Mary, on that, how does it work at the Commission state mandates? Do they have public meetings and
yes,
and they have votes, and who's on the commission? I've never had to deal with that agency.
So the Commission on State Mandates is really composed of a commissioner from the state mandates plus somebody from Department of Finance, somebody from Treasury, and somebody from State Controller's Office. So keep in mind that this decision and this opposing document was only from the Department of Finance. It was not from the commission as a whole. And so we're hopeful, but I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because September 25th, we have a public hearing on our mandate. And I believe John's going to make sure, if you're interested, please send me an email, because we have to in advance give the names of who wants to be present at that hearing, and it's done through Zoom. So we're going to be reaching out to board members, because I know several board members have reached out to me wanting to be involved in that, that public hearing. And if you'd like to be involved, please send me an email and I'll make sure that we are getting that information to you, and that the commission also has your names. The last update that I have is on the process around the independent counsel for the audit committee. We had talked about getting an independent counsel a couple of meetings ago, and I've been working with SANDAG's contract management staff. I developed a scope of work. We are now at the process where we're going to be entering it into the contract management system, and then it has to go through a routing process. And then it gets advertised. Once it's advertised, we have to leave that out for 2 to 3 weeks. We get all the interested parties, we do an evaluation, and on that evaluation team, we've already named as Bill, Paul, and myself. Once we do the selection, then we do a final agreement. That whole process is about 4 months away in total. So it's about a 4-month process to complete. What I do need is a commitment that Hassan had kindly made at that meeting about where we were going to get the funding. And it's $100,000 for a 3-year period. So it's over 3 years. So Hassan, I'm kind of looking for the OWP number to provide to contract staff.
We will, Mary, no problem.
Okay. So that's all I have on my update.
I just, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just on the, Paul's question about, like Mary said, and I spoke to Mary about this, they rejected the claim before, in the draft before we even submitted everything. And I told Mary this, a few years back at SCAG, we submitted also for reimbursement for unfunded mandate. And if you look at the language they send us, it's exactly the same language I got 6 years ago in Los Angeles. So I'm not a bit surprised. I'm hopeful like Mary is, and I want to thank John Kirk and Mary for putting together the package. I'm hopeful, but you know, I'm not gonna count my money right now.
And as I said, I used to audit state mandates with the controller's office, and I can tell you, Department of Finance is pretty consistent in their statements, pretty much on every mandate. So it wasn't a surprise to me. So
either for Mr. Kirk or Mary, what is the protocol for this? Should we line up speakers? If we weren't in COVID, I'm looking at Mr. Kirk across the way. If we weren't in COVID, how does it work? Do you go to Sacramento and have a hearing in a government building, or is it in San Francisco? How does it work?
Sacramento.
It is Sacramento. I believe Mary is very familiar with this process, but ultimately there is a hearing. Normally that would be an in-person hearing, but currently this is going to be, I don't know what platform they use, but it will be a teleconference meeting.
It's like the hearings of the legislators. Actually, there is a call-in number. You take a number, you stand in line, and they call on you to speak, but through technology, not
through Zoom. Yeah, it's going to be a Zoom.
Okay,
call.
so it's sort of like the way we would have done like a coastal commission type, or
that's correct.
Or okay, got it.
And as a matter of fact, this should make it easier for more of our elected leaders to participate, so they don't have to travel to Sacramento. All they have to be is in a place where they could call or log into.
Okay. So Mary, are you helping to organize the folks who want to participate? You know, I'll do it. I don't know if Stuart has, either in your audit committee role as your ITOC role, if you want to do it.
Sure. Absolutely.
So Mary, your staff's going to coordinate as to who wants to speak, how we do it, send us the notice and everything.
Yeah, I've already asked John to help, because John's going to have to respond to the commission on behalf of Sandag and let them know who will be attending and wanting to speak on that. And I've asked Robin to reach out to the board of directors to see if there is any and who would like to, and then to get that all organized. So okay. I'll include the audit committee members as well.
Okay, and where do you have more, Mayor?
No, for the update, that's it.
Okay. Any questions for Mary?
No.
Okay. Hearing none. Could we go to item 5, the fiscal year 2019 audit reports and standards?
Yeah.
Catherine from Crow and Leanne from Sandag, according to my
Chair,
notes. Yes,
Chair
ma'am.
Baber, just for item 4, there are no public comments.
Okay. Who's just said that to me? Linda. Linda, do we have to do that at the end of it, or can I ask you at the beginning of each one?
So Chair Baber, this is Tessa. Just to clarify, the point of order is normally how we do public comments is we take the presentation, and then we take public comments, and then we take member comments.
Okay. All right. So presentation, ask for public comments, if there are any, then member comments. Okay.
Yes.
So hearing none, we're on item 5. Is Catherine and Leanne there?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Hi, Leanne. I see you.
Hi.
And Leanne, is Catherine with you?
Yes, Catherine is there.
I'm here.
I don't see her on my screen, but I trust she's there. Okay. So
Sure.
Leanne, do you want to take it away?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I see. There. Well, I saw Kathy for a minute there. There we go.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Chair. So good afternoon, everyone. So this agenda item was originally scheduled in March of this year, but due to the COVID situation, it was postponed to today. So now we have another report also due to the committee. So that is for FY20 audit planning communications. So now we're combining the 2 reports together today for the presentation. Okay, so as you all know, Sandag is required to go through financial and compliance audit conducted by an independent certified accounting firm each year. So Crow LLP was the CPA firm conducted and concluded our FY19 audit in March of this year, including the audit of Sandag's comprehensive comprehensive annual financial report, or the CAFR, and the basic financial statements for the 3 component units: the San Diego County Regional Transportation Commission source one Argus, as well as the financial reports for the SR 125 toll road operation. So the annual audit also includes the single audit and the TDA audit. So as you know, the purpose of the audit is to provide reasonable assurance that SANDAG's financial statements are prepared in accordance with GAAP and they're accurate and reliable. And it also ensures that SANDAG complies with the federal and state laws and regulations. And then we follow the guidelines and provisions pertaining to our federal grants and programs. So we had a team of auditors who spent months of time, performed various audit procedures, conducted numerous testings over our financial data before they issued their audit opinions. So Kathy Lai, the engagement partner of the audit firm, and her team are virtually with us today to present to the committee the FY19 audit results, as well as deliver FY20 audit planning communications in accordance with the Statement of Auditing Standard. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kathy for her to introduce her team and also present the reports. Kathy.
Thank you, Leanne. Good afternoon, everyone. As Leanne mentioned, my name is Kathy Lai, and I'm the lead audit partner on your engagement. On behalf of Crow, we look forward to working with SANDAG again and related entities, and appreciate the opportunity to debrief the 2019 audit results, as well as discuss various topics related to planning for our fiscal year 20 audit. For our fiscal year 20 audit, we have prepared an audit service plan for your consideration this afternoon, and I welcome any recommendations for additions or changes so we can best meet your expectations as your independent public accountants. Advance to the next slide, please. So before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to introduce some key members of the Crow management team. And you may need to click a couple of times just to get the full group. Great, terrific. So given the size and complexity of the SANDAG audits and the number of deliverables, as Leanne mentioned, that we issue, we have accordingly staffed our engagement with higher level resources with our government experts. So with me today, I've got Jennifer Richards, who's a managing director, and Erica Alvarez, an audit manager. And both Jennifer and Erica manage and oversee the TDA audits with respect to the recipients of those TDA funds, several different cities and counties. And then I also have Rachel Adoba, who is a senior manager in our public sector audit practice, and she and I oversee all of the other primary SANDAG audits under our engagement. So Jennifer and I will take the lead on the presentation today, and Rachel and Erica are also available for questions and have joined the call as well. Next slide. So our presentation this afternoon really includes two major sections. First, we've got our fiscal year 2019 audit results, and second, our fiscal year 2020 audit planning communications. And again, we welcome questions throughout and certainly at the end of the presentation as well. If you could advance to slide 5, please. So here are our 2019 audit results. I'm pleased to report that we have issued unmodified or clean opinions for SANDAG's CAFR, Commission, as well as the related cash flows for the Commission, the South Bay Expressway, Argus, and SourcePoint. Next slide. In addition to the financial statement audits, we also perform compliance audits related to federal grants, or otherwise known as the single audit, or maybe referred to as the uniform guidance audit, as well as agreed upon procedures for the NTD, as well as the Coronado Bridge. And I'm pleased to note that there were no findings on the single audit or the NTD or the Coronado Bridge AUPs. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer to cover the TDA audit results. Next slide.
Thanks, Kathy. Yeah, so the TDA fiscal and compliance audit, so we issued an unmodified opinions on each of those audits. There were 17 audits in total included in this part of our work. And we had unmodified or clean opinions. We did have one TDA audit for Chula Vista where we did have a financial reporting finding. There was a material weakness related to a number of audit adjustments that we had to the financial statements, including revenue recognition and expense recognition. And management responded to that with a corrective action plan, namely tightening the review over financial statements and having more precision over reviewing reconciliations and the tie out of those to generally accepted accounting principles. We also issued our 3 reports on the County Local Transportation Fund, the County State Transit Assistant Fund, and the San Diego Metropolitan Transit System, STAF, and those were also unmodified opinions.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Next slide. So the last part of our fiscal year 2019 results are just certain required communications under our professional auditing standards. We've already communicated our auditor responsibilities and plan, scope, and timing of the audit during our last meeting, so I'll go ahead and focus on the balance of those bullet points on the screen. I'm pleased to report there were no significant and unusual transactions that were noted. With respect to your accounting policies, as disclosed in the different financial statements, we believe that they're appropriate to the particular circumstances of all the different entities, and that the disclosures appeared to be neutral, consistent, and clear. You will see a reference to the implementation of 2 new accounting standards, GASB Statement Number 88, which is enhanced disclosures related to debt and direct borrowings and direct placements. Upon the implementation of this auditing standard, SANDAG, which also includes the Commission as well as SR 125, they had enhanced their debt disclosures. There were really no impacts on changes in fund balance or net position. It was just increased disclosures surrounding their respective debt. With respect to GASB Statement Number 83, that's in relation to the certain asset retirement obligations, and the adoption of this statement did not have any impact on SANDAG's financial position. With respect to management's judgments and accounting estimates, those I believe are accounted for appropriately. A great example of that would be your pension and your post-retirement benefit obligations. You know, those amounts reported require management to use estimates that are typically based on actuarial valuations, and we've reviewed that for reasonableness and believe it is appropriate. I'm pleased to report that for our misstatements here noted, we did not note any material misstatements, either corrected or uncorrected. And with respect to our other required communications, we did not experience any significant difficulties with respect to management or disagreements with management. In fact, it was quite the opposite, and we certainly appreciate their cooperation throughout. And with that, that concludes my fiscal year 2019 communications. And maybe before I proceed to the fiscal year 20 audit planning communications, I can pause there and see if the committee has any questions related to the 2019 results.
Okay, do we have any questions either from the committee or from Mary? Okay, hearing none, let's go to 20.
Okay, terrific. So let's go ahead and advance to slide 10, please. And Leanne had already did a great job of summarizing this, but just again, for fiscal year 20, the objective of our audit is to express an opinion on the financial statements that they're in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. And so as auditors, we're required to conduct our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and for SANDAG and the Commission, also government auditing standards. And so those standards require that we obtain reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement. In our audit, it's important to note, includes a consideration of internal controls over financial reporting, but we don't express an opinion on the effectiveness of those internal controls. So those are the auditor responsibilities. Likewise, management has responsibilities during the audit as well. It's again very important to note that management is solely responsible for preparing and presenting the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, as well as the design and implementation of maintenance of those internal controls relevant to the fair presentation of those financial statements. Next slide. So just for your benefit, I'm just confirming here that these are all of the required deliverables. These are the same as the prior year, so no change from fiscal year 2019. Next slide. So this brings us to our planned scope for fiscal year 20. Just as a broad overview, Crow's risk-based audit approach, it really can be segmented into 4 different phases. We've got our planning, our internal controls, and then we have our substantive audit procedures, and then we wrap it up with respect to reporting. And during our planning, one of the most important aspects of our planning phase is really creating our overall audit strategy map and account strategy. And during that phase, the audit strategy map considers the strategy for substantive testing as well as the internal controls portion of the audit. And there's a variety of different activities that take place. For example, identifying financial statement key accounts and disclosures, assessing inherent risks, any planned controls reliance, and then the residual risk of material misstatement for such key accounts. And for all significant risks of material misstatement identified, the audit team will design audit procedures to address such risks. So during our engagement, again, we're required to obtain an understanding of internal controls, and we don't express an opinion on that. But when we obtain an understanding, we really view internal controls from 3 vantage points. 1, from an entity level perspective, 2, from an account level perspective, and 3, in relation to IT general controls or any application controls. A great example of that would be, for example, system access. And so during the planning phase of our audit, we determine materiality for planning purposes when we are performing our audit strategy map. Just a quick reminder here that materiality really is a matter of professional judgment. Recently, the AICPA had issued a statement on auditing standards clarifying the definition of materiality to better align our AICPA professional standards with outside bodies like the PCAOB or SEC. And it's really defined as misstatements, including omissions, that are considered material if there's a substantial likelihood that individually or in the aggregate, they would influence the judgment made by a reasonable user based on the financial statements. And so that definition recognizes that the materiality judgments really involve both qualitative and quantitative considerations. As Mary had noted in her report, we will be in contact with her, and we've in fact had discussions with her already with respect to any reviews that she is performing, any external reviews that she's performing, so that way we can make sure that we take into consideration her results in our risk assessment and ultimately determine the nature, timing, and extent of additional substantive audit procedures as a result of that. And this last item is probably the most important to me, and that's just matters warranting attention of the auditors. And really what this is that I want to make sure that you know, I want to keep a very open line of communication between Crow and the committee as well as the board. And I encourage you to reach out to me with any matter that you feel might warrant my attention as your auditor relative to Sandag's financial reporting. And of course, my contact information is included at the end of the presentation. Next slide. So here is just an overview of our planned timing. We have concluded our interim audit as well as the internal controls portion in June, and we will be back for final field work in October and November. And then the target issuance date for the TDA audits, field work takes place in August, and hopefully wrap that up by December. You know, one item that I did want to bring to your attention, obviously with the shelter in place that has taken place back in March, and you know, as you referred to the economy recovering in a U-shape, V-shape, or a W-shape, you know, there's a lot of uncertainties here, and a lot of local governments are struggling with, you know, with serving their constituents under this respective environment. And so I just want you to know that we're being very sensitive to those challenges, and as we reach out to conduct our TDA audits, that we will be assessing whether or not there might be any potential impact related to the TDA audit timing. Of course, our goal is to be on time as normal, but we will elevate any concerns that are brought to our attention from those local governments to Sandag immediately. Next slide. So this concludes the majority of our presentation. Just a discussion here really quickly about certain required communications specific to fraud. So we are responsible for communicating evidence that fraud may exist when we see that evidence is there, and that matter will be brought to the appropriate level of management. We are also required to bring certain matters related to the conduct of the audit to those charged with governance or the committee. That would include fraud involving senior management or any fraud that causes a material misstatement to the financial statements, any illegal acts that come to our attention, or disagreements with management, or significant difficulties encountered in performing the audit, or any other various matters related to the accounting policies related to the financial statements that we don't believe is commensurate with respect to GAAP. And so our professional auditing standards also require that we perform inquiries with those charged with governance surrounding matters that might impact our risk assessment. So to the extent that the committee is aware of any weaknesses in internal controls, or any known or alleged or suspected fraud, or any tips or complaints that arise to your attention, or any other risks of material misstatement related to the financial statements, we welcome you to contact us regarding any of those matters. And again, my contact information is included at the very end. So with that, I'm happy to address any questions.
Okay. Do we have any public comments on this? Hold on. Do we have any public comments on this?
Comments at
Okay. So do we have any board comments or questions? I'll ask one then. I don't know if this is for Kathy or Mr. Kirk or from Mary. It's an information item. Is that because it's interim and you're just updating us, or is that because we don't act, it goes right to the board? What are we? Why are we docketing at this point if it's information? Maybe I'll ask Mr. Kirk that.
Excuse me, if I can defer to Amberlyn. She's been the focus of this to make sure that we get you a complete answer.
Amberlyn, are you on?
I am. Thank you, Chair Baber. The
item
hi,
there you are.
As was agendized for information only because there is no action that's required by the audit committee. I think in the previously presented, the audit committee discussed this issue and discussed whether it was appropriate to accept the report. We determined there was no requirement for a formal acceptance.
Okay. Does this go on to the full board, Amberlyn?
So Chair, if I can chime in, so this item will be reported to the board for its next meeting. So the audit committee will bring the item to the board for its next meeting for the FY19 audit results and the communications as well.
I'm sorry, we're sending it on, but we're not commenting on it. We're just saying, yes, the audit committee reviewed it.
Well, certainly if there are any comments by the audit committee, those would be forwarded to the board for consideration as well. So if there are any items or comments to put on the record, we can do that now.
Okay. Mary or members of the audit committee, do you want to put any items on the record regarding this?
No, I have no comments.
I have
No comment.
I guess I would just ask the governance question. Is this forwarded to the board for the board to formally vote to accept the audit?
Yes, I think so.
Because if this is put to the board for them to vote for acceptance, it seems to me that if I were a board member, I would like to know whether the audit committee formally recommended or not that the board accept, in which case I would move that we make a formal recommendation.
Stuart?
Can I, Mr.
Stuart?
Chairman?
Oh, go ahead.
I think, and I had a discussion with Mary before that. I believe everything with audit should go through the audit committee. So, and maybe we're mixing the pre-performance independent officer with the post. So the question I have for Amberlyn or our staff, if the board is going to take action, and it's going to take action whether to accept or reject the audit, and why are you bringing it to the audit committee with no action? So that's the first question. Are you required by our own bylaws or policies to do that? But if it is like Mr. Halben mentioned, if it is something that the board, it's going to go to the board from the audit committee have to have a say. Otherwise, why bring it? Just to say we brought it? Or is it a response to policy or a bylaw I don't know about? If you may, Amberlyn, address that.
So board policy 39 generally puts all audits within the purview of the audit committee. This particular audit does not require any sort of approval or recommendation by either the audit committee or the board. But certainly if the audit committee felt that it had comments it wanted to convey, or if it wanted to take a formal action to either approve or take some other action, it could do so. It's just not a requirement.
So this is not also required to be acted on by the board either, correct?
I don't believe it needs to be acted on by the board. This is typically
Okay, so then that answers your question, Chairman.
So,
okay.
Amberlyn, you're saying let me see if I can, you're saying, Amberlyn, it's required to be brought to the board, but that the board is not required to take action on it. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Well, I think it's important from an audit perspective to make it clear that nobody accepts or rejects the auditor's opinion. It is what it is, and they can either accept the recommendations or they can ignore the recommendations. But an audit opinion and the findings of it are not rejected or accepted. They're really either the recommendation is accepted and moved or it's not, and that's typically management's, decision.
Okay. I think, Barry, what Stuart and I are sorting through is our relationship to the board. If the board doesn't have authority to accept it or reject it, then I understand why we don't. And I guess that's how it's configured. We're getting informed of it, and eventually the board will get informed of it.
Exactly.
But neither body will accept or reject it.
Right, Mr. Chairman, can I come in on this?
Sure.
Point I think is important. I was looking at the bill that actually created this. This is what we refer to as AB 805. The only reason I recall this is I looked at it in connection with the mandate again. The Public Utilities Code, section 132.351.4, which is subsection A5 of that section, reads as follows in part: the audit committee shall recommend to the board the contract of the firm conducting the annual financial audits and the hiring of the independent performance auditor, and approve the annual audit plan after discussion with the independent performance auditor pursuant to this code and so on.
But
so we do have a duty to at least approve the audit plan, and I think that would have to be an action item.
Kathy, are you
Yes,
there?
I am.
You want to weigh in on it? When we looked at your audit, you were auditing individual cities like La Mesa and El Cajon and everything. So when you do these in other parts of the state, how does it typically done?
It does vary from time to time, from client to client. I will tell you a similar, I'm picking on one similar client where of similar size and complexity as well up in the Bay Area. And they have a formal audit committee or a formal finance and audit committee. And we bring forth the audit plan, and there is a recommendation similar to what Member Halpern had suggested, to accept that respective plan. And then subsequent to that, when it comes to the full board, the chair of that respective committee will then make a report with respect to the activities that took place during that meeting, including the formal recommendation to accept the plan. Now, I was only speaking with respect to planning, but it's certainly the same process that could take place with respect to the audit results, like the fiscal year 19 results. Typically, we segregate those again for you as opposed to including both in one communication. The only reason why we decided to include both is because when we were originally scheduled to make the communication, we were in shelter in place back in March.
Right.
And so it just kind of carried on, and to be respectful of your time, we included both the results for prior year as well as the current year. Does that help clarify?
So, Mary, what do you suggest?
Actually, Bill, what Paul just read is not a approval of a plan through the external auditors. That's my independent performance auditor's plan that was approved by you guys.
That's what I thought.
But that is not the external auditor's plan that is approved. That doesn't happen.
Okay, that's good to hear then. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Right, okay. So let's, Amberlynn, do you concur on that?
I do, yes.
Okay. All right. So then we've discussed this, but Amberlynn, we don't have to. We're not taking any action or anything.
No action is required today.
And then when this comes to the board, who makes? Do you put it on consent, or does Kathy make a presentation? How does it work?
I apologize. I don't know how it's been agendized for the next meeting or if it has been yet, but we can certainly get that information back to you. I apologize, Chair. I can't hear you when you speak into that microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amberlynn. If we're done with item 5, could we move to item 6?
Yes.
Okay. This is the procedures for communicating Office of the Independent Performance Auditor reports and website posting. So, Mary, this is you.
Yes. Hello again. At the last meeting, we discussed in depth a process in which we would document how the reports would come to the audit committee, when they would come to the audit committee, when they would be posted on the website, and then when they would move and how they would move to the board of directors. And so we had that discussion. I took the notes and I went back and documented the procedures to basically reflect what we discussed. Just have sort of a more formal written process that's transparent and public. It would go on our OPA website as well. And that is this document. And really what this document is it follows what's required of me through AB 805 and how we're supposed to present our reports. And then it follows through with Board Policy 39. And so it's consistent with both AB 805 and Board Policy 39. This is sort of just like internal policy and procedure of the OPA office. It's not a formal board policy. It's just sort of documenting how we're going to do things. So the only change that I'm going to go ahead and make after speaking with Hassan and Bill is I have on page 2, or actually of the agenda, it's page 41. I put management submits written response to the audit report, and I put in parentheses, management generally has 1 week to respond. That was a general statement, but Hassan feels more comfortable putting a more firmer date. So I'm gonna change just that and give it 10 business days or 10 working days, which is 2 weeks. So I'm gonna change just that because he feels more comfortable with having that. So I'll make that change, and if other than that, unless there's other comments and change requests, this will be the process. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
It's changing to the 10 business days? Is that?
Yeah, I will put 10 business days, yes.
Okay. Okay. From Bob, Stuart, or Paul, any questions? Bob, Stuart, or Paul, any questions?
I have one. Or is that Paul?
Go ahead, Paul.
My comment was I had none from Paul, or no questions from Paul.
Okay, Bob, Stuart, your pictures aren't on my screen, so I can't see if you're.
Stuart has a question.
Yeah, I have
ahead,
one.
Stuart.
And thank you, Mary. My question actually was partly whether you conferred with Hassan about the 1 week. But even with the 10 days, I guess the thing that I really want to get to is, when I'd really like to see as part of management's response to your recommendations, not just that they hopefully agree and intend to implement the changes recommended, but that there's also a well thought out work plan with milestones to help provide transparency and accountability for implementing changes. And so while the 10-day response time should be enough for management to decide if they agree, et cetera, I'm wondering about the notion of whether it's sufficient for management to actually have a fairly granular implementation plan to remediate.
Yes, thanks, Stuart. Actually, that's a good point, and that kind of goes into what our next document. But the 10 days is just for them to respond if they agree or they disagree, and they intend whatever Hassan feels he wants to do. He intends to implement a corrective action plan, and then we would ask for that. So typically, I would work with Hassan after he provides a response, and I would recommend that a corrective action plan be designed with that granular discussion that you were having, and it would be up to ultimately Hassan if he would want to actually do that.
And if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Hassan.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for accommodating the 10 business days. Stuart, I totally get, and I don't think you could in 10 days prepare a plan, but obviously, let us say that Mary makes a recommendation, we agree with the recommendation, then I'll work with Mary's office to move into an action plan of how we're going to resolve it and bring it to the audit committee. It's obviously is not enough to say I accept the recommendation. You have to, if we accept it, we have to change it to satisfactory element for the committee. So you're right on. I don't think in 10 days we're going to be able to develop an action plan, but we'll at least say we are going to agree and develop an action plan moving forward.
And one of the things that this office does and what auditors can do is we can't tell that we can make a recommendation and we can support and guide them on how to implement those recommendations. And that's what we'll do here is work with Hassan and actually help him develop a corrective action plan using our guidance. But the actual movement and steps taken is on Hassan and his group.
Okay.
Gotcha. So would it be fair to say, Mary, that in other words, sort of step one of your follow-up assessment will be to what extent is there an actual action plan as opposed to the wait the year and see if you did it or not?
Absolutely. So when for example, the upcoming audit that's going to be coming to you in August, we'll go over that. There'll be recommendations in there. And then it will really be the audit committee who can then say, we're recommending that not only this goes to the board, moves to the board, which it will, but we're recommending that Sandag management create a corrective action plan, and you can even put a timeline on it. And that can go as a recommendation to the executive committee and the board of directors. And then Hassan can work to agree with that and work from there as well. So it's even more solid that way.
Okay. So is item 6, Mary, an action item that we're approving, but that's just internal within the audit committee, or does this actually move forward to the board?
It's not a board policy. It doesn't move forward to the executive committee or the board. It's really a administrative sort of procedures for my office, more laid out to ensure that board policy 39, which is already in place, and 805 is enforced and kind of is assured that it occurs.
So should the audit committee now have a vote to approve this or not?
Amberlynn, do you think that they need to vote on that?
Yeah, board policy 39 gives the audit committee the authority to direct the independent performance auditor. So certainly the audit committee could consider this formal direction, but you would also have the option to just approve the procedures.
Bob, Stuart, Paul, what's your preference?
I would just assume it's an internal procedure, and I don't know if there's any need we need to have a formal vote on it.
Okay, hold.
I want to say one other thing, Bill, just a second. Thank
Bob,
you.
I don't hear Bob very well. Is that just me?
I can hear him.
You have a problem?
Okay, can you start again, Bob?
Okay. Well, my opinion is it's an internal procedure. She's reported it to us. I don't know that we need to have a formal vote on it as a committee. We can simply give her directions to use this procedure. My other comment was to Mary. Thank you, Mary, for putting this together. The only question I had was the week, and you and Stuart have already answered that. So
okay, that's
my only.
All right, why don't we do that? And also because Mr. Kirk advised me that if we do take a formal vote, it moves it up to the full board, and that really wasn't our intent. The question is just whether, do we have consensus to agree with Mary, this is the way to be? If we have consensus, we don't need to take a vote, and we don't need to, forgive me for being crass, bother the main board with this. So, are you okay with that, Paul, Bob, and Stuart?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Yep. All right, then let's wrap that up. Yeah, is that clear enough direction for you, Mary?
Yep, clear enough.
Okay. Item 7. Wait, do we have any public comment on this?
There's no public comments for this item.
Okay. Item 7 we've referenced a couple times. We originally had planned to schedule a meeting on August 14th. Hassan is going to do a presentation on the 5 big moves to the full board, and asked us not to conflict with the audit committee, and so we are proposing we move the audit committee to August 21st. But we hadn't had a chance to formally talk to Bob, Paul, and Stuart. What do you think?
Paul Dostart had something still on his calendar from August 28th. So if we go on 21, then 28 is off?
Yes.
Okay. Stuart and Bob?
This is Bob. I don't have any problems with moving it in August.
You're saying August 21st is not a good day for you, Bob? Is that what you're saying?
No, the 21st is a good day for me.
Okay, so Paul's okay on the 21st. Bob's okay on the 21st. How about you, Stuart?
I'm fine for the 21st. That's good.
And one more
Okay,
thing, Bill, we're asking for it to occur at 10 a.m. rather than 12:30. Is that okay with
Okay.
everyone?
What if, okay, let me re-ask that. Can you do 10 a.m., Paul, Stuart, and Bob?
Yes.
Yes, Paul can.
Okay.
Bob can.
10 a.m.
Stuart?
Yes, 10 a.m. is
Okay. All right, then should we take a formal action, Amberlynn, to move the meeting to 10 a.m. on August 21st?
None is necessary for this action. You can consider it direction to staff.
All right, then it's direction to staff. Okay. Are there any public comments on item 7?
No public comments for this item.
Yeah,
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to thank you and Mary and the committee member for accommodating the schedule. Very much appreciated.
And Hassan, remind our members if they want to participate on the 14th.
Yes.
What time will that be?
That will start at 9 o'clock and probably goes into the afternoon. But if you are interested, let us know so we can make sure you have the information.
And is that going to be one of those meetings where it's the board and all the subcommittees?
No, it's the board and everyone interested from the stakeholders on the subcommittees.
Okay, but and you're going to be talking more about the 5 big moves that day?
Yes, it's the whole meeting is about the 5.
Right, so that's a big deal if you want to dial in on the 14th. Okay, item 8 is back to Mary. Summary status of corrective action plans. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, so this was, again, I'm gonna say thank you to my staff, specifically to my 2 interns who kicked butt on this and worked very hard and successfully and worked with Sandag staff to basically hunt down every way they possibly could all audits of the past 5 years that have been done internally and externally on Sandag. And not only do that, but compile a report that included all the findings, the recommendations, and whether the status is there's a corrective action, and if so, is it fully been implemented or partially implemented? And also, was it a key or crucial component to be implemented? So this document with a lot of effort got created. As you know, there was not one before. So we kind of didn't know what we didn't know, and we hope we know a lot more now. We are really seeking the information from Sandag staff on making sure that they're reporting and they're including us in all the audits that are going on at Sandag. And they've really been doing well. Sandag staff, as the audits start, they reach out to me, they inform me, and we kind of keep me in the loop. I think that's really helpful. Moving forward, this just got done. It's just sort of a starting document. Moving forward on a quarterly basis, we'll reach out to Sandag staff. We'll ask for updates on the status of the corrective actions if they're unimplemented or not fully implemented, and we'll ask for updates on where they're at. We'll also send out on a quarterly basis to the Sandag staff if there's any new audits that we need to add to this list. And we're also suggesting and recommending that Sandag, because this document was provided to Hassan, it will really be a great tool for Hassan, because what you can do now that you see the whole global picture of all the findings and all the recommendations is look for similar areas of weaknesses and possible improvements around operations, and really wipe a lot of those findings out and prevent them from being repetitive in the future. So it's really a great tool to have, both for me as an auditor and for Hassan as management, to help improve and strengthen the controls and the operations of the organization. I also recommend that Hassan keep a general folder that is where all the reports are deposited and kept up so that when the auditors do come, either the oversight auditors or external independent auditors come to look for all the audits that have been done for the year or the past 5 years, they can be provided this folder that really has the breakdown of subfolders of all the major programs that have been audited, and then this corrective action combined sheet that we created that is there at a glance for them. It will really benefit.
So Mary,
Tda.
when we go, is this posted on the website now?
It will be posted on the website. We still have some tracking to do. We're still waiting back for some responses on the status of some of the corrective actions that we haven't got responses. So we're going to be following up with them. But not only that, this doesn't stop here. Just because they tell us that something's been implemented doesn't mean that it's working and it has been implemented. So we are limited on our staff. We are very busy. We need more people, but we are going to carve out some time to make sure that when they tell us something has been implemented, that it actually has been implemented. So we'll be doing some testing and also that it's working, right? That it's effective and it's efficient and it's doing what the control's supposed to be doing. So we will be doing some random and judgmental selections to ensure that things that say they've been implemented have actually been implemented and that they're working.
So Mary, this will be the summary, I might just for common language, the summary is going to be on the website so the public can see it.
Yes.
And the responses will be on the
Yes.
website. And if somebody wanted to actually see the full audit, where would they find that?
They can either reach out to me or to Tda because that's public record. So they can
Okay, so it's just, okay. Hassan wanted to say something.
And thank you, Mary, for forwarding me that, and I will absolutely take your advice and counsel of having a master file for all of those. I know you have a staffing issue, we have a staffing issue. We're going to have to live through, but I would promise the committee members and you that every single finding that these audits resulted in will be dealt with, and hopefully you will have the time with your team to make sure that that's the case. I don't expect you to take my word for it. I expect you to, you know, at one point say, yeah, it's done, because the goal here is to make sure the agency is protected. So thank you for the summary. I got it last Tuesday. I'm still reading it, trying to understand your language, so didn't know that you're ever going to make an auditor out of me, but I promise you we'll do what we can to protect the agency.
And
do
just
we have any
remember,
public?
Hassan,
Go ahead, Mary.
just to remember, Hassan, it's not my language. It's actually someone else's language, though it is auditor's language.
Yeah.
So I will agree with you there, but I will help you interpret it if you need. Just ask me. But one thing that it also provides, Bill, which is a good point that you brought up, is it will be posted on the website. And if you look at that summary or compiled document, it has the auditors that audited and performed the audit. It has the type of audit, and it also has the SANDAG responsibility. So the staff that's responsible. So that's a pretty good amount of information for the public if they need it.
Good. Okay, do we have any public comments on this?
And Mr. Chairman,
No public comments. Okay, go ahead, Hassan.
Yeah, so, and the chair, your chair here, I'm always reluctant to say his last name because in my native language, PMB gets messed up.
It's okay. You could just call me Bill. I'm good with that,
call him
too.
the chairman.
Okay.
Chairman and Mary and I had a talk about resources, and obviously we're waiting for the final result from our submittal to the state, and hopefully the commission will give us money, but I'm not banking on it. And as I promised the chair and Mary that given where we are and the COVID-19 impact in our economy, I will provide more resources to Mary. We're trying to figure out, and we said about the second half of this of this fiscal year. So I'm not forgetting that, and I'm still with my commitment that I want to make sure, regardless of how long we're here, that the agency have enough resources to make sure things are getting done.
Well, look how much work she got out of 2 interns.
Absolutely. So that actually she's encouraging us not to give her anymore.
Yes.
So.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you to the interns. If they're watching on this, Thank you, all of you who worked on this.
Yeah,
So let me
did an
say,
awesome
do
job.
Stuart, Bob, or Paul want to make any comments or questions about this?
This is Bob. Just one quick question to Mary. So this report, this summary, is going to go on your website. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Will this also be going to the board?
Yes, it will. As informational, it will go to the board as well.
Okay. So then, do we need to have a motion or anything like that from the audit committee?
I was going to ask Amber Lynn that. This is another one of our internal operations. Mary, you want this to go forward to the board, correct?
I think it should be going to the board, and I think AB 805 points out that I am responsible for following up on corrective action plans. So I think that it should go to the board. I think it's only informational that it should go to the board. It's like I said, it's going to be posted, and this will come annually. So I'll actually give this to the audit committee, post it, update it, and post it annually to the website, and also information to the board.
So Amber Lynn, if it's intended to go to the board as information, should we do nothing, or should we actually vote, or what's your recommendation?
So Board Policy 39 specifically states in the context of corrective actions that the audit committee will monitor those and inform the board when corrective action is insufficient or untimely. So in this particular situation, I don't think that a formal vote is needed unless there's some specific recommendation being made by the audit committee to the board regarding a specific corrective action. But certainly if the audit committee wanted to support it, recommend it to the board, they could.
Will the board won't vote on it either, right?
It will be information to the board. So
information.
No vote is really needed at this point.
Okay. So Paul, Stuart, Bob, can we just sign off on Mary and let her take it to the board as information? Are you good with that?
Fine.
You good with that, Mary?
Good by me.
Fine.
Mary? Okay, then that's what we'll do. And without any comments, let's move on without any more comments. When are you going to bring that to the board, Mary?
I will get it to the board there as soon as I can get it agendized.
Okay. So number 9 is summary of fraud, waste, and abuse for fiscal year 2019-2020. Go ahead, Mary.
So here we are with the sort of similar to the layout of the corrective action, but this is sort of any reporting of fraud, waste, or abuse complaints that have been filed either directly to me through my email. It could be an employee contacting me, or through the official fraud, waste, and abuse website. So this is just since I started, since last April 2019 forward, this is the status of those. I want to thank Stuart for suggesting that I take a look at the city of San Diego because I liked their format. It was really well laid out, and so that's sort of what I just mimicked. And this will be done again on an annual basis because sometimes these reviews take more than a month to even finish, and sometimes, and many times, as you can see, nothing really results from them. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, this too will be posted to the website and go to the board as informational.
Okay, do we have any public comment on this?
No comments on this item.
Okay, Paul, Bob, or Stuart?
I'm fine with it. We're talking about item 9.
Yeah, we're on 9.
Yeah, that was fine.
I'm fine.
Bob?
I'm fine with it.
Stuart?
Yeah, I had one comment and one question. My comment is, first, Mary, I wanted to say how much I appreciate that in the table you've got a really very helpful summary of the issue, as well as your assessment and the follow-up. Frankly, I think you've got a little bit more information in your summary than the city of San Diego, and this is very, very helpful. The question I have is on item 8. There's a reference, just by way of example, you're saying that the matter was referred to San Diego Chief Counsel and closed. For your purposes, when you refer to something as closed in this regard, is the referral to someone else itself the reason you close it, or do you actually keep it open and then work with whoever you referred it to see that they have somehow satisfactory closing?
If I referred this to, I believe what you're speaking, on the matter you're speaking of, that I referred it to general counsel, it was because it really wasn't in my preview. So it really wasn't a matter that at that point they were coming to me saying there's been fraud, waste, or abuse. It was really an issue that was better suited for general counsel.
Gotcha. Okay, so the degree to which some final action has been taken by the ultimate relevant person, it's going to be somewhat situational, but it's closed, indicates it's closed from the perspective of your office.
Absolutely. Now, and there was conversation that was had back and forth before I determined that it was best suited to be with general counsel, and I kept general counsel and this individual in the loop, and did, spin off by saying this is better suited with general counsel of Sandag and not really within my area that I should be at this point addressing. However, if there's something that comes to your attention as a result of either the action or inaction from general counsel, and you believe that it's related to fraud, waste, or abuse in any way, that you should, contact me.
Got it. Thanks. Appreciate the clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there, so this goes to the board as information too, so we don't have to take any action on it.
Right, goes to the board as information, and it also gets published to the website.
Okay. Any other comments on number 9, Bob, Paul, or Stuart?
I have no comments.
Okay. Then on number 10, do we have any more public comments that we haven't already dealt with?
No public comments.
Okay, so item 11 on the agenda is incorrect. The next audit committee meeting will now be Friday, August 21st at 10 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. With no further comments, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
John Kirk
Yes.
and Hassan, would you look at the notes I sent you, please? And I think those are chat notes that you can read. And I'll tell you what, they're not secret. John Kirk, I merely asked if you would email to me a copy of your filing, apparently very persuasive filing with the Commission on Mandates.
It was very good. I was impressed.
And Hassan, I have a point about Arabic that I wanted to raise with you. You'll see that.
Okay. And Mary, are you coming back up here?
Yep, I will come to get you.
Okay. All right, then we're adjourned. How do I terminate the meeting? Just don't do anything. Walk away.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.